Hello there. Welcome to our sensory analysis panel for game controllers. You must be one of our highly selective volunteers. Okay, great. Before we get started, may I get your name and email, please? Okay. Okay. Alright. Okay, thank you. Now, so, yes, the objective evaluation of this sensory test aims to assess the characteristics of our game controller products and reasons why customers prefer a game controller over the other, customers such as yourself here. This way we can ensure its product quality, identify any defects, and understand our customers' preferences. Exactly. The sensory test is traditionally used for evaluating food products. However, we are broadening our research by using the scientific method to identify the best game controller products. Right. Okay. That being said, let me briefly explain today's sensory tests, which involves testing appearance, okay, sound, smell, taste, and texture of our game controllers. Which game controller, you ask? Right, so in terms of branding. Yes, so today's game controllers will involve PlayStation, Xbox, Sega, Nintendo. So what we will do is we will be asking you various questions, and there are no right or wrong answers, so you don't have to worry about that. And if you're ready, I can get that set up for you. Are you ready? Yes? Alright, great. Okay. Just let me set this up on my laptop here. Alright, so let's get started. Just to confirm one more time, could you repeat your name and email address for me, please? Okay. Right? Oh, that's a W. Let me change that. My apologies. Okay. Now, what is your date of birth? Okay. Great. Right. Okay. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions before we actually start the test. Are you sensitive to any lighting or colors in any way? Okay, so I'm going to use this light device here just to check the reflection of your eyes and its muscular structure. Alright, turn this on. Alright, looking at your right eye first. Okay. Good. Good constriction. Looking at your left. Very good. Good constriction, dilation. Alright, that's great. Let me type that and record that on the system. Okay. Okay. Alright. Okay, how about texture? Any sensitivity to texture? Like touch, certain textures that you do not like to see or feel. Alright. Thank you for that. Okay, how about sensitivity to specific smells? Okay. Great. Okay. Alright. Now, what is the best email address for us to send you your controller preference results? The same email or a different email? Sure. Okay, your email address, please. Okay. At gmail.com. Great. Alright. Okay, now you're all set and we are going to get started on the test. So remember, there aren't any right or wrong answers. Just try your best to answer authentically. I will not provide any answers, alright? And I will be recording your answers via laptop here. Now, if you like to explain your answers, that is completely fine. Or you could just simply give me a direct answer. If it's a yes or no question, a color preference like red, white, black, blue, or a shape preference such as triangle, circle, square, or X, etc. Alright. Okay, so let's get started with our first sensory test, and that would be vision or sight. First, let's start with color. Which game controller color did you notice first? PlayStation 5 or Xbox Elite? What color is this controller here? What color is this controller that I'm holding here? Okay. Alright. Now, how about the face buttons on this controller? What color are these face buttons? What color do you see on these face buttons? Okay. Alright. Now onto this PlayStation controller. What color do you see on this controller? What color is this game controller here? Alright. How about the face buttons on this game controller? What color? Face buttons on this game controller. What color are these face buttons? Just the buttons. What color do you see? Take your time. Okay. That's great. Let me just type in and record what you set in terms of color, right? Color controller. Okay. Face buttons. Okay, now on to visual acuity, starting with the Xbox controller. Which letter on these face buttons is most obvious to you? Which letter on these face buttons is most obvious to you? Name me the first letter that you see on this Xbox face button. A, B, Y, or X? Right? Okay. Now, on to the PlayStation 5. How about this PlayStation controller here? Which shape on these face buttons is most obvious to you? Which shape on these face buttons is most obvious to you? Cross, circle, triangle, square. Okay, pick the first shape you notice on these face buttons. Remember, there's no right or wrong answer. Alright. Okay, let me record that there. Buttons. Okay. There's buttons there. Alright. Now onto the D-pads. Okay. Please take your time to observe these controllers. Now, which direction on this Xbox controller am I pressing? Which direction on the D-pad am I pressing? Okay, how about now? Which direction am I pressing on the D-pad? Okay, great. How about the PlayStation? Looking at the D-pads here, which direction am I pressing on the D-pad? Which direction? Okay, how about now? Which direction am I pressing on the D-pad? Alright. Just let me type your answers. Just let me record your answers here. Alright, okay. Alright, so now on to our second sensory test, which is the hearing test. So the purpose is to determine which game controller buttons are the quietest that you can hear at different frequencies and which is the loudest. Alright, first one will be the auditory acuity. So we're going to use these two game controllers here, the Sega Genesis and the Nintendo Gamecube controllers. So I'm going to press on a designated button and you let me know if you hear it. How does that sound? Great, let's get started. Firstly, I'm going to have you cover your eyes for me. Alright. All covered? Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to use the Sega Genesis controller here. Now, can you hear this sound? Okay, great. How about this one? Okay. How about this button here? Did you hear anything from this button? Alright. Okay. So now I want you to please take your time on the following question. How many buttons do you think you're hearing me press? Again, how many buttons do you think I am pressing? One more time? Sure. Again? Okay. Alright. Now I'm going to press 2 buttons, one at a time, like this. Now, which one sounds louder? Button 1 or button 2? One more time? Sure. Button 1. Button 2. They sound the same to you? Yeah, we can put that as an answer. Okay, so let me type in your answers for the Sega Genesis controller sounds. Okay. Alright, so on to the next question. GameCube controller. Okay, so Please close your eyes again for me. Alright, all closed. Okay, can you hear this button? One more time. Can you hear this button? Okay, how about this one? Okay, how about this one? How many buttons did you hear? Okay, good to know. One more time. How many buttons did you hear? How about this? How many buttons did you hear? How many buttons did you hear? Okay, great. Now on to frequency differentiation. Alright, so before we do that, let me record Nintendo GameCube controller sounds here. Your answers. Two, okay. And 3. Alright. So you will tell me which button has a higher pitch. Okay? So we're gonna use this controller still, GameCube. Alright, you're gonna tell me which button has a higher pitch. So again, please close your eyes. Shh, shh, shh. All closed? Alright. So, now I'm going to press a button. And you will tell me which button has a higher pitch. Button 1. Okay. One more time for button 1. Button 2. One more time for button 2. So which one has a higher pitch? 1 or 2? Again, 1 or 2. Okay. Now, how about the D-pads? Looking at the D-pads here for the Nintendo GameCube controller, which direction on the D-pad has a higher tone? Up or down? Again, which direction on the D-pad has a higher tone? Up or down? Now comparing these two controllers, which controller button sounds is more relaxing to you? Sega Genesis or Nintendo GameCube? Alright, let me record your answers. How are we doing so far? Good. You're not tired, are you? No, I'm just asking. Some people do get lethargic after a long test. Okay, great. Just let me know if you need anything during the process. Okay. Right. Button 1, button 2. Okay. So, how are you feeling so far on the test? Okay, great. That's great to hear. And are you ready for the next one? Alright. So it looks like on your records, it's showing me that you can smell color. Is that correct? Okay. Alright, so we're going to apply that to our next test, which would be smell. So we're going to use the Nintendo Switch Joy-Con and Nintendo Switch Pro. So let's start with the Joy-Cons. What does this Nintendo Joy-Con smell like to you? Focus on it. Look at the color, the design, its size, its attachment, its detailed buttons, contour, curves, its multi-shaded blue. Again, what does this Nintendo Joy-Con smell like to you? That is very interesting. Alright, hold that thought. Alright. Okay. Switch. Pause. Wow. How old were you when you started smelling color? Oh, that is amazing. Yeah, we do. We get a lot of clients who smell color as well, but it amazes me still. Do I? No, I don't. That's why it's very interesting. Well, we also have clients who also smell sounds. Really? Wow. Okay. I'm just curious. Alright, so let's continue. Okay. So now, looking at the attachment string here. What scent do you smell from this color? What scent do you smell from this color? Okay. Right? Okay. Now let's look at the second controller. Okay. Now on to Nintendo Switch Pro. What scent do you smell from this second controller? What scent do you smell? From the second controller. Yes, this is a light pink color, kind of transparent, that you can see the black color inside the interior. Wow. Okay. That is a great answer. Okay. Interesting. Alright. Alright. So which controller has the strongest scent? The first controller? Okay. Or the second controller? Again, which controller has the strongest scent to you? Okay. Alright. Okay. So focusing on the Nintendo Switch Joy-Con controller here. Could you rate its smell from a scale of 1 to 5? 1 being the worst, and 5 being the best. Again, you rate the smell of this Nintendo Switch Joy-Con from 1 to 5. 1 being the worst, and 5 being the best. Okay. How about this Nintendo Switch Pro controller? Again, rate its smell from a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being the worst, and 5 being the best. Alright, let me record your answer here. Okay, so our next sensory test is taste, and it appears on our record here that you can also taste color. Well, alright. Okay. So we're going to use 2 controllers here. We're going to have this PlayStation 3 controller. Right? And we have the Xbox Sky Cipher controller. Alright, so first off, what does this PlayStation 3 controller taste like to you? First sight, what does this taste like to you? Interesting. Alright. That is great data. Okay. Right, thank you. How about, honestly, that sounds delicious. How about the second game controller here? This Xbox Sky Cipher controller. What does it taste like to you? That's very interesting. Right. Okay. Now, these 2 controllers. If these 2 controllers were to be food, which one would you eat first? Which one would you eat first? Alright, so let me record your answer here. Okay, so the next sensory test is touch. And so we're going to use 8-bit dough here. PlayStation 2 GameStop controller. we're going to look at its texture, feel it together. Now looking at these two controllers. Which one has more texture to you? 8-bit Do. So I can file my nails on it. Or GameStop controller. Again, which one has more texture to you? Which controller button has the most texture? 8-bit Do. Or PlayStation GameStop controller. Okay. Record that in. And all right. Okay. All right. So that completes our 5 sensory game controller tests for today. Do you have any questions for me? Yes. So once we upload and analyze your results, we will email them to you. And depending on your score, we will ask for you to come back for the second game controller sensory test. So it'll take approximately 2 weeks to process your test results, sometimes even faster, like about 1 week. Then we will be contacting you soon after via email in regards to your results. That's right. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time to come in today and taking the sensory tests. It was great to get your perspective on these questions. That definitely helped us a lot. We'll see you next time. Yeah? Okay. Well, depending on your timeline, a good morning, a good afternoon, and good night.